Wow. Hello, everyone. My name is Mara. I'm program manager at North Island Métis Association. A couple months back, we started our fire bags at our groups. And so today I'm just showing the next steps. So as you can see, I have completed my beadwork and tufting and embroidery and quill work and fish scales. This is just a little bit of everything on this piece, just so we can use it as a demonstration when we go into classrooms to show folks the different Métis art forms. And this one I have already put my bias tape on. So today I'm going to show you how to attach your bias tape, as well as the next step of beading, which will be to add your row of beadwork along the bias tape once it has been sewn together. So I have cut out my fire bag now. So if you remember, we were beading on rectangles, so there were the legs weren't cut out, we just had the lines drawn so that we could follow along with. So I've cut these out. I have also cut out pieces of cotton in the same size and shape. So that is what I have on the back side of this. I thought the little orange foxes helped tie in the color. And you're not going to see a lot of it, but you will see this on the underside of your legs. So now what I'm going to do is I will pin this. So I have my fabric pins. And I'm going to pin each of the legs just so they stay in one place. And just be mindful of which direction they are pointing in. So as I was sewing the bias tape on this piece, I was changing the direction of my pins because I kept stabbing myself. If you would like any assistance with completing this portion of your project, you can feel free to come by the office. The first Friday of the month from 1 to 3 we have L'Espace, which is a drop-in group, as well as the last Tuesday of the month between 6 and 8. And I am here to help you finish your projects, or just to come if you want to have a cup of tea and work on something else that you're doing. Okay, so this is nice and secure. And so now I've got my orange bias tape for the next side. I have not cut it, so as I was doing this one, I just left the rest of the bias tape on the roll. And then that way I had the exact amount that I needed and didn't waste any. And then I have a small needle with some orange thread. And this thread is meant for hand sewing, so it'll be much more durable than a sewing machine thread, which is not meant to be going through your material. So every time you pull a stitch, the entire length of thread goes through, and it will wear it down. So this is meant for hand stitching. Okay, so I've got my bias tape here, and I'm going to fold over the end just to give it a nice finished look and so it doesn't fray. And then I am going to just do a triple back stitch, which I have shown you in several of the other videos. This is just going in and out in the same place 3 times instead of using a knot. So now I'm going to line this up on my side here. I'm going to bring my needle through to the front of my thread, or of my bias tape. And now I'm going to fold this over. So it is in half. I've got half of the bias tape on one side and half on the other. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stitch through, making sure that my needle is through the bias tape on both sides, and if not, you make sure to readjust. going to sew through here a couple of times up at the top just to make sure that it doesn't pull away. And get caught. Okay. So now I am just going to sew a straight stitch, making sure that my liner, which is the cotton fabric, as well as the melton, are lined up so that when my bias tape is getting folded over and sewn through, it's going through 4 layers of material. This is what's going to hold it together. So if you're missing a piece of the cotton or the melton, it will stick out from underneath and it's not going to hold well and be more likely to fall apart. So you want to keep your stitches as close to the edge of the bias tape as you can. And make sure with each stitch that you're checking both sides, that you're actually going through the bias tape. And I am just going to continue doing this all the way down. So I'm going to straight stitch my bias tape all the way down to the end and around the corners and back up and go down each leg and then back around the top. And then I will do the same thing that I did to start with over here. I'm going to fold over the end and sew it over top of this. So that is sewing of the bias tape on your fire bag. The next step after the bias tape is sewn on will be to sew the first round of beads on. So as you can see, I have started sewing these beads on over here, and I'm using a 2-needle beading technique. And so that means I have 1 needle that is double threaded, and this is the needle that I'm putting my beads on. So I'm going to pick up as many beads as you want. It does not really matter. When you're doing single needle beading, you want between 6 and 8 beads at a time, but with double needle beading, you can have 10 or 15, whatever you'd like on there to start with. So I'm just going to put those beads on. So I have my double threaded needle that I've put my beads on with. Now I'm going to put this off to the side. I will often even just tack it into my work so that I know where it is. And then I have a single threaded needle, and this is my tacking needle. So now I'm going to just go and I'm going to put my needle up through beside where the bias tape is and come up as close to the orange as possible. And tack down every 1 or 2 beads. And so now I'm going back down. Oops. I'll move this over here. I'm going back down as close to the orange bias tape again as possible. And then I'm coming up beside the orange bias tape. Going over my beads and back down, making sure that I'm going down straight so that I am hiding the thread. So what I am doing is I'm just running my needle along the bottom until it catches on the bias thread so that I know where to push up through. But you can flip it over with each stitch. And then tacking down, making sure that it is coming down beside the bias tape. And that first stitch that I just did, I came down on the bias tape accidentally, and I didn't notice until it was too late. And so you can see the stitching. So if you keep it as close to the edge, then you're going to be less likely to see the stitches that you're using to tack down. And so now I'm just going to continue this, tacking down all the beads all the way around both sides on my fire bag. And then once I get to the end of my beads that I have put on, then I will just pick up some more. Oops. So I will bead all the way along, following all the lines of the bias tape. Once my beadwork and the bias tape is all completed, the next step will be to sew the fire bag pieces together. And then you can also add a picot stitch around the edge once the bag has been sewn together. Some octopus or fire bags would have had that and some wouldn't have. It was very common for Métis style beadwork to have that. And so I will show you how to do a picot edge in another video. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Kawapamatin, Mina, and merci for watching.